John Butler here on The Buzz, and I'm pleased to welcome a congressman from East Texas who doesn't mind speaking his mind, Representative Louie Gohmert. Welcome to The Buzz.
Well, thank you, John, and thanks for recognizing that, at least in your opinion, I do have a mind.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. It's a good thing.
I seriously do not know how you guys do it, and you get verbal rocks thrown at you every single day.
Every day, yeah. And actually, there's just a lot of people praying for me, and of course, some probably praying the other way, but they're praying to the wrong place. So I'm doing okay.
A personal question: how do you handle it? How do you mentally handle all that?
Well, I can tell you, Friday was flying back home and went to Reagan National Airport, and a lady about my height met me, and we passed there in the corridor. And as she took a step past me, she yelled for all to hear, "Louie Gohmert, F you." And so I turned around and yelled back, "Well, bless you." And anyway, I know it really made her mad, but anyway, I just know that people that are thinking people like we have in East Texas, they understand what's going on. They understand the threat to our freedom. And the people that, believe it or not, I'm friends with a number of very liberal Democrats. We disagree profoundly on the issues, but I know they want good for the country. They're just going about it, they're pursuing the wrong things. But John, there's a lot of people here. We're not pursuing the same things. They want to take us down this Marxist, socialist, it's really Orwellian path that is just fraught with the end of freedom. And so that's the problem.
It's a clash of ideas, but these days the vitriol is so intense, and people are frankly just burned out. They're burned out in the news. The ratings are dropping. I guess the reverse of the Trump bump. And there was a survey I had pulled up here earlier. It was talking about people trust their local radio DJ more than they do the national news channels and cable news. Give us some hope, Louie.
Well, there is hope, but as one of the people that I admired and respected and came to love in person is Chuck Colson. And Chuck Colson said, "Our hope will not arrive on Air Force One." Of course, he was talking about hope being in Jesus Christ, but there are so many people praying across the country. I run into them all the time. And there are so many people that want to preserve this freedom. We don't want to be the last generation that has the freedom that we were born with here in this country. But it is in grave jeopardy. But, I haven't given up hope because I'm still here. When I don't run for office, then I don't have any more hope. I've given up.
Just a clash for raw power. Is that what's going on?
Well, I'd say most people on both sides of the aisle are not just in an all-out clash for power. But the bottom line is that is what's going on from the kind of leadership we see. There was a need for National Guard when there were so many people here going to be here on January 6th. Capitol Police had told me the night before when I said, "Well, I know y'all are gearing up for tomorrow, but and I'm sure there'll be a lot of people here, but they're going to be Republicans, they're going to be conservative Trump supporters, the kind of people that clean up their own trash. So it shouldn't be a big problem." And the two Capitol policemen were telling me, yeah, but we've had a briefing that there are going to be people here stirring things up, that they're not necessarily Trump supporters, but they're going to be here wearing red and MAGA and Keep America Great and all this stuff. And they're going to be stirring up trouble. So we're planning on there being some violence tomorrow. But what I didn't know at that time was that people knew that there were folks coming up here, and there was some conservative groups that came, and they're troublemakers. But we had troublemakers from both sides, some disguised, some not. John Sullivan, I played the video in judiciary hearing. The guy hates Trump with a passion, but he was one of the first ones in the Capitol. He was egging people on. And so unfortunately, when the offer was made to have National Guard troops here, we were told the reason they were not brought in was because of the, and I quote, optics. It was all about politics. And John, that's what that double big fence has been. Now we're down to one fence around the Capitol instead of the miles around the perimeter of that. But that's all about optics. There was no threat after that. And there's the chief of the Capitol Police has said there is no intelligence from any source whatsoever that any member of Congress is a threat to another member of Congress. So the metal detectors around the House floor are all for optics. They have no purpose other than political optics. That's the trouble right now. It's all about politics for Speaker Pelosi and those in charge.
Well, what I never understood is why they attacked or went into the Capitol at that particular moment when some representatives were about to raise objections to the election and the results and possible fraud in the election. Why at that very moment, if you wanted to support Trump in that case?
Yeah, you know, well, see, you're a thinking person. It doesn't make sense that if you were supporting President Trump, that you would come create a problem right at that point.
Yeah, at that very moment, that didn't make sense.
And
maybe
so
afterwards, if you didn't agree,
it delayed it. And by the way, you have corporations that are woke, and you have Democrats that have just been furious that we raised objections. They wanted to have us censured, file ethic complaints, things like that, because we raised objections over concerns for fraud. And I felt like the solution, and we proposed this behind the scenes to the vice president, which was the reason for the lawsuit, trying to get something worked out. I believe the Constitution is clear enough that, yeah, we're supposed to count, count the Electoral College votes, but that also includes the authority to say there are some questions about some of these, and we need some illumination on this. And what I was hoping and encouraging the vice president's lawyers was, you could say, look, we do have to start this process on January 6th. No requirement has to be finished on January 6th. We have questions of fraud that have been raised in these states, and the legislatures have had hearings like in Georgia and Arizona. They're looking into this. So we're going to recess for a week and give the legislatures in those states a chance to tell us which electors are the appropriate electors. Now, there were people that were saying, no, you can't look to see if they're fraudulent. Well, no, we can give this. Well, I think we could, but it was a better idea for if the vice president had just said the states can make that determination and then let us know. But those that say, no, you can only count what is in front of you, you have no discretion whatsoever. Well, that's the same reasoning that would say when the Constitution says the Senate will give advice and consent on nominations by the president, that means you can never dissent. You must always consent because that's the word that the Constitution uses. Well, that's stupid. That's crazy. Of course, if you've got the power to consent, it means you also clearly have the power to dissent and say, no, I'm not going along with this. No, this is inappropriate. But in January 6th of 2017, I think there were 11 Democrats that were vociferous in their objections that it was a fraudulent election, it was stolen, it was not appropriate, Russian interference, all this kind of stuff. And so imagine our surprise when those same people that raised objections, some in 2017, some in 2005, some in 2001, January 6th back then. Now they want to crucify anybody that did the same thing that they had done.
Yeah.
So there's no shortage of hypocrisy in this town, and certainly no shortage of hypocrisy at this Capitol.
Yeah. And that's been true for a long time, but especially now, and it's a lot of it's very obvious.
I hope that makes sense to people on the objections, but that's what we were dealing with. And like you say, it doesn't make sense that people would interrupt the process of objecting, which is what they wanted.
Yeah.
And I think that's, it wasn't specifically about January 6 events, that back in in 2002, Congress passed a bill that extended the crime discussed and made a crime in 18 U.S. Code 1512. And what they added was this, and I won't read the whole thing, but what they added: whoever corruptly otherwise obstructs, influences, or impedes any official proceeding or attempts to do so shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. Well, a lot of the people, John, that have been arrested, hundreds of people have been arrested. The feds expect another 100. Some of them have been raided with big SWAT teams, a bunch of FBI agents, different things, just intimidating like crazy. We've got people that are still being held in solitary confinement 23 hours a day, even though they didn't have a firearm, even though they didn't set anything on fire or kill anybody, as some of the left have done in their billions of dollars damage they've done around the country. So it's crazy, but many of them have been charged with that crime under 18 U.S. Code 1512, that they obstructed or impeded an official proceeding. Well, I was here in June of 2016 when Democrats in the minority came to the House floor screaming about the Orlando shooting. It was horrendous.
Yeah, they actually sat around there for a while, didn't they? And
they violated probably more than a dozen House rules, but they also committed the crime because they intended to disrupt and prevent us from having an official session of Congress. And unlike January 6th here, they did it for over 24 hours that they refused. And there were times we tried to get started and they'd grab the microphone. And as one of my friends said, I realized after she grabbed the mic from me that if I tried to get it back, she'd scream assault or sexual assault or something like that.
Yeah.
But they actually, in my opinion, they committed that crime that carries up to 20-year sentence in prison.
And nobody was prosecuted during that, as I remember.
Not a soul, not a soul.
Well,
but
for more information,
on the warpath here now.
For more information on this, you gave a speech first part of May on the House floor, and people can pull that up on YouTube or at your site, your website. I want to turn to an issue that's a little closer to home, and that is the Texas border, actually the whole border. I've been down to the border, the Texas border, and along the Arizona border. And it's unbelievable. People cross in some of those parts of the desert and of course across a river and risk their life. The coyotes are bringing them in droves.
Yep.
Um, Give us a little update on the border and your view on what's happening down there right now.
Well, it's an invasion. Um, one of the Border Patrol was telling me that last month they had 170,000 people cross our border illegally.
Wow.
That's the people they know about. We don't know what we don't know. We know there were 170,000, according to him, that crossed our border illegally. But as they've told me so many times when I've been down there all day and night, that when they see a group come across, if it's big enough, the drug cartels, who nobody crosses our border from the south without the drug cartel's permission. And that means you either pay them or you work out a deal where you'll do drug trafficking, sex trafficking, something down the road to pay them for letting you come across illegally. And those drug cartels, when they send a group that is intentionally going to be turning themselves in, looking for Border Patrol. And by the way, I saw a new thing I hadn't seen before when I was down there a month or so ago. It's remote. It's miles down a dirt road, but it's also where many people cross illegally across the river. I mean, I've seen a tarantula down there in the wild. There's all kinds of varmints and things through there. I can't imagine taking a kid through there. Yeah. But they built a little tower so you can see it from a distance. It's got a solar panel on it, and that provides power for this big red button that, and there's in English, Spanish, and some other language I don't even know. I know it wasn't Russian, but it tells them push the button and the Border Patrol will be there immediately.
No kidding.
Or making it easier to come in illegal.
Yeah. Wow. And then a lot of times it's a distraction. People coming across the border, and then the coyotes will bring drugs across the border a little further down the way.
Yes, thank you. That's where I was going.
Yeah.
Sometimes they say it's drugs, but it's either drugs or a very high value customer who's paid them a lot of money to get them illegally. So that's going on all the time.
Yeah.
And I went down the river with our Texas Department of Public Safety. I'm telling you, John, if we put them in charge of defending the border, nobody's coming in.
Yeah.
Because when they're down there, nobody crosses where they are. They don't let it happen.
Well, you know, I mean, we all feel for those people. We all have hearts and we feel for them. What's a better solution here?
Well,
go ahead.
One of the resolutions I saw down there as I was going to DPS, this is, I don't know, very late at night, 1 a.m. or so. And I could see all these lights in the distance. And I said, well, what's that all lit up down the river? And they said, oh, there is a landowner that got sick and tired of people coming across, destroying his property. So it basically did a GoFundMe, and just on contributions, he was able to build this huge wall. And as we got there, it was very tall, extremely well lit, cameras everywhere, and nobody crosses across his property anymore. It's about 3 miles along the river that's got that big wall on it. Nobody crosses there. They go somewhere else now. And the government didn't help him, not one penny, but people just helping with contributions built that wall there.
Let me ask you,
part of the solution.
Let me ask you one other question closer to home also. And that's about the homeless. I've traveled across the United States, and virtually, I mean, small towns, mid-sized towns, and of course, large cities, there's the homeless. And you have the big problem in Austin, where I went to school, people camping out. And then in Dallas, they've started setting up tents along the intersections, actual tents, and it's full of, all their stuff and then their garbage and everything. What's going on?
Well, it's what happens when laws are not enforced. You know, I'd been to New York City in the late 70s when I went into the Army. I had been through there, and when I left, had been through there, and there was just so much homelessness. And one of my Army buddies had said, you know, you got to watch out, don't make eye contact. And you people from Texas are real friendly. You can't do that in New York. It'll tick somebody off and they'll stab you. You just mind your own business, keep your eyes on. Well, when Rudy Giuliani ran for mayor and said he was going to clean up the city, I'm going, oh, good luck, but that isn't going to happen. And he had what was called the broken windows, you know, policy. Yeah. There would be no broken windows. There would be no homeless on the street. They made sure that if you were going to try to be homeless on the street, they'd pick you up and put you somewhere where you did have a home. You did have a place to stay inside. And for some reason, so many people who are extremely liberal, have big hearts, they think it's compassionate to let people live out in those hard circumstances instead of getting them a place where, and getting them to a place where they have inside shelter and food.
That's what I don't understand. So it's not good for them. I mean, it's
not good for them. Well, in the same token, people that say they're compassionate encourage people to come in illegally. And when you're down there and you see these little kids and you know they're being lured into this country, a lot of people familiar with the idea, the legal notion of attractive nuisance. If you have, you know, what most common, if you got a swimming pool and you don't have a fence around it and some child is drawn to that swimming pool and drowns, there's a strong lawsuit against you for having something that lured people in to their demise, their detriment. Well, that's what Biden and his ilk are doing when they encourage people to come. And, you know, Doctors Without Borders had said at one time they thought about 25% of the women were being raped on the way, often multiple times. Some of the things that have gone on, people have seen video, kids being dropped over, little kids being dropped over the wall and stuff. There is nothing compassionate about that. And John, I'm telling you, the most compassionate, caring, smart thing we could do as a good neighbor would be to totally secure the border. I don't want it closed because I want to continue to have good workers that come in legally into this country. Nobody allows 1 million people to come in legally. We do. But secure that border, cut the tens of billions of dollars that are going from Americans to the drug cartels, stop that, and then the corruption in Mexico will dry up. They're good people in Mexico. They've got great natural resources, great location. The reason they're not a top 10 economy is because of the corruption from the drug cartels. You cut their money to a trickle, and our neighbors to the south will only want to come to the U.S. for vacation because they'll have great jobs, great economy, take care of their families right there. That's what a good neighbor would do.
Well, Louie, I know you're in session and I know you got to get back to business. I want to be respectful of your time. I just want to ask you one more question before you go.
Well, you're about the only one around here right now.
So when you're in your office and you're looking out the window and you know, they've been throwing the verbal rocks at you left and right and from above and below, and you think about East Texas and back home, what's the one thing you really miss?
Well, I come home every weekend, but the thing I miss most when I'm here during the week is the common sense in East Texas.
Wow.
I love that about where, and I was numerous places all over East Texas this weekend. And I just constantly think about how wonderful the people, and I know there maybe 25% or so, about a fourth that can't stand me, but I mean, the common sense in East Texas just abounds. And there is no common sense. There's some sense, but it isn't common, not here in Washington.
Louie, That is the best answer anybody could have given. I was expecting maybe a barbecue place or something. Common sense.
That's it.
Got to agree with you. Hey, thank you very much for giving us your
Thanks.
time.
It's so great to be with you. Thank you, John. All right, man. We will talk to you again soon.
Take care.